Looks like we're live. Fantastic. So, hi everyone. I'd love to introduce you to the three panelists we have today. We have Karthik Rao. Karthik Rao is the CPO of Good Glam Group. We have Pooja. She's the VP People and Culture at High Radius. And we also have Shamil Sharma, who is the CHRO and COO of ACS Solutions. We're super excited. As you can see, we're excited to talk about AI and the future of personalizing employee experience. We had an interesting conversation yesterday as well, and we decided that we'll keep this as free flowing as possible, as much fun as possible. And majority of today's session will be your questions. So please do post all of your questions in LinkedIn comments, and we'd love to take them. But before we start, just fun fact: this is the first LinkedIn Live in 2022 that we're doing. For those of you who are coming here again, we love to give you some more color on all speakers, and we'll give them some color outside of work as well. So starting with Pooja, she's not just the VP People and Culture at High Radius. She loves to say that she's a mother of four. One of them happens to be her own son. The other happens to be her pet, her dog, who's a cancer survivor. Pooja, would you like to elaborate on the other two and share a little bit more about your personal passions?
Sure. I just say that I'm mother of four. One, because I have a son who's 14, act like 20. And I have a dog who's 10-year-old. And he is a cancer survivor. He's a fighter with a amputated leg. And my mother, who is 65 plus, and after a certain age, parents become your children. So I call my mother, I'm mother to my mother. And I've been married for long. So I feel that my husband has also become a child. So that's what is typical mother of four for me, Tanmay.
Thanks, Pooja. Thank you so much. Now, coming to Shamil, coincidentally, both Pooja and Shamil are based out of Hyderabad, and they have 3,000 plus employees, 4,000 plus for Shamil. But Shamil mentioned that he's also passionate about fitness, travel. So, Shamil, you want to share some light on that?
Through my initial parts of my career, it is always about work, work, and work, and trying to make your mark in the organization. But there's a time in your life when you reach a particular stage and you also join an organization which gives you that work-life balance. And that's where I am today, where at ACS, for the first time in my entire history of 5 odd years plus of experience, the weekends are my weekends. And the company does not expect you to work on the weekends or even do reports on the weekends. So that goes a long way. So that's where all my hobbies now say, okay, fine, what have I lost out? So traveling is one of them. Get my car out and do road trips as much as possible. Otherwise, by air trips is also something that I love doing.
Fantastic. For everybody's context, Shamil has an interesting background. He has a hotel management background where he didn't start his career from HR. He started his career as a business head, as a transformation expert, and has landed into HR as a profession. So he's going to bring some interesting perspectives for us. Now, of course, with Karthik, right? Some of my team members call him a maverick, right? And he's passionate about theater and writing. So, Karthik, do you want to shed some light on your passions?
Yeah, I mean, I started with teaching at a primary school, and then I went on to even do theater, where I was writing and I was assisting a director. But by 23, the mental gymnastic of art and commerce kicked in, and I realized your passion and theater may not pay you well, and that's where I turned to HR, and happened to be one of the best decisions I've made in my life.
Fantastic. Awesome. So, for everyone's context, and this is where I can start the panel today, Karthik has gone through 12 M&As, mergers and acquisitions over the last few months and years. And we were just discussing before this call that Karthik has been working in a different office every single day. And to be precise, 6 offices within NCR itself. So, Karthik, can you shed some light on what is it like to go through these M&As and the challenges that come along with it? And how are you going about solving for them using technology?
Yeah. So one, I think the biggest challenge is the mindset. The company that is acquiring is in a very strategic framework, and the company getting acquired is in a very emotional framework, right? So how do you make these two very diametrically opposite mental models of founders come together, and where you ask your team, which is acquiring, to be more empathetic and compassionate, and how do you ask the founders and the incoming to be a little more pragmatic, I think is actually a very tightrope walk. Right. So I think we've designed a very simple framework, which is clarity, capability, and comfort. Right. Any successful M&A eventually first brings in a lot of chaos, and hence how do we first focus on clarity? What will my role be in the M&A? What will my role be in the new structure? Who's going to be my manager? The second is the capability. Now that you have clarity, do you have the capability to deliver in your role? And third and most important is comfort. So I think everybody, especially HR, focuses on skill and will. I personally feel there is another third element called dynamic or chemistry, which often people call as culture, some call it collaboration, some call it camaraderie. But how do you focus on that chemistry or dynamic along with skill and will, is what we do. I think on terms of how we do it through technology, I think I was sharing yesterday when I spoke that culture, org structures are X-rays and culture is ultrasound, because it's not visible, right? बहुत undercurrent रहता है. Now, culture essentially gets driven by two kinds of people. One are leaders who appear on the org structure, and other are influencers who are not appearing on the surface. So I think the purpose of HR is to go from hindsight to insight to foresight. How do I predict things rather than being reactive? And especially in a change management like scenario, like COVID, for example, right? A very big change, not expected. How do you focus on it? And how do you use influencers? So there's a tool called ONA, Organization Network Analysis, which focuses on individual networks' net worth and tell what is this individual circle of influence. And there are 7 kind of influences that can exist within a company. So very simple questions. 2 things matter in network: reciprocation and frequency. How frequently do I talk to Tanmay, and how frequently Tanmay talks to me? And there are very simple 7 questions we use. Who do you go to when you want to know what's happening in the organization? 5 people in the frequency. Who do you go to when you want to take a career advice? Who do you go to when you want to discuss a personal problem? And these very simple 7 questions. And then this tool actually tells you, I go to Tanmay. Tanmay goes to Shamil. Shamil comes to me. And I eventually go to Pooja. So Pooja is the highest density network in the organization. Because once all these conversations happen, who is the person who actually controls the sentiment of the group? Pooja can control my sentiment. I can control Tanmay. Tanmay controls Shamil's. How do you use these people, and how do you use these network density to drive change? And ये हमने companies में बहुत देखा है. So Tanmay is my manager. He comes, gives me strong feedback. I come out, I go to Pooja and say, yeah, it's a bad company, it's a bad manager. He screwed me today. And if Pooja is a positive influencer, she'll say, you know what? यार होता रहता है. Life में stress है. I think you should have done this. Let's talk about it. Let's go and have a smoke. Versus if she's a negative influencer, she'll say, yeah, I told you this is a bad company. I'm myself looking out for a job. Nothing is going to change here. 5 times you do these conversations, I'm going to change the job. Pooja is not. Right. So how do you identify these influencers, and how do you drive change management through them, especially in a very dynamic, unaware VUCA world kind of environment in an M&A? I think that one ONA tool has been superb in even predicting attrition. So if I leave, I have influence on 5 more people. So we have predicted who are the people likely to go, and that has been a great tool to drive culture.
That sounds really interesting, Karthik, especially when you mentioned hindsight to insight to foresight. That seems like the next title of like the 2022 blog. But I think I want to deep dive a little bit on the ONA bit. Usually, like I've seen ONA platforms which do it basis integrations with, say, your emails, and they find out who is the node of central communication, just basis frequency. However, I heard that you are asking questions, these 7 questions. So is your ONA based on like a blind integration, or is it based on a survey? I'm just curious how you're going about it.
No, it's more of a dialogic, where survey usually is yes, no. This is where in a survey a little more extended, where I say who are the 5 people I go to, and at what frequency: once a week, once in 15 days, once in a month, or once a quarter. Because as I said, frequency and reciprocation both are important. Right, and this is a tool which we adopted from one of our partners, and they actually did this was also something we used in housing, because I did 7 M&As there in 4 years. And there, one of our sales had moved to a competitor, and the ONA tool showed 7 RSM, regional sales managers, at risk who would go with him. In 2 months, all 7 left. And because we knew these guys were at risk, we had made offers, we had prepared everything, and we ensured minimum business loss. So from a attrition standpoint, from a retention standpoint, this became a great tool.
Wow, that sounds amazing. I think usually we tend to predict people who are at risk of leaving. However, what about the people who are at risk of leaving because the person who's left, right? So that sounds exciting. So thank you so much, Karthik. We'll come back to you.
Yeah.
Pooja, I remember discussing yesterday that, of course, your career had started off with a heavy influence from GE, but the world is totally different from what GE's culture used to be like a few decades back. But you also mentioned that with 3,000 plus employees going remote, there used to be a time when you used to walk around offices in Hyderabad and just get a sense of how people are feeling. But now we don't have that. So how do you sort of measure employee sentiment post going remote? How do you deal with those challenges? Like, how have you dealt with remote work?
Well, to be very honest, yeah, the remote work has been really tough to all of us because we are a growing organization. We add more and more new people every month. And what really happens is that how do you emotionally connect with anybody in a remote setup? So that's where we came with Playbook, how to connect and who should be the lifeline for every single person in the company. Is it the manager, or is it your employee experience partner, or is it the buddy? So the real focus for us is having this playbook in place, letting them know who to contact. And then second is like we do surveys. But then we were actually thinking of more just not surveys, because now people have reached a point where there's a survey fatigue. Nobody really respond to the survey question over there. Nobody wants to get on to your survey monkey or your Google form and answer. You'll have literally 20 to 40% participation only. And that's why the whole twist has to come. And that's why I was looking for Infid over there. How do I check the employee sentiments, which is not the same question for everybody? The question need to be changed based on the experience. Somebody who's a fresh college graduate, somebody who's a lateral hire, somebody who's a young parent. Every single person has a different requirement for engagement. And that's what, so one solution is not working for all. There are multiple solutions targeting at multiple groups. And that's where our focus has been. How exactly we can use AI to get into the predictive way of understanding employee sentiment. And we are running so fast. We want to make decision quickly. And this is the data which provides us for the predictive analysis to plan better. We are phase of, with the great resignations as well. We would like to know what our hiring plan will be. And all of this information streaming together to make solid decisions for us.
That sounds really interesting. So, of course, when you go remote and you introduce surveys, and you mentioned survey fatigue, right? One of the learnings we also had was that the real reason behind survey fatigue has usually not been like the length of the questionnaire or just frequency of surveys. It's actually been lack of action fatigue, right? So, one of the learnings we had was that, like, whether you deploy something like Infido or SurveyMonkey or whatever product you use in the world, it's actually the action and the communication of that action which drives let's say people to sort of continue engaging with any platform that you use. But I think I'm so glad you mentioned that.
Yeah, it does happen. The survey fatigue does create because they don't see action. You will have people responding, and if there is no action, it's more from the leaders and the managers. They communicate back, because every single request which comes, you have to provide a rationale of what exactly you're doing and why exactly you're doing, right? And how they want to change. So I agree, Tanmay, if we don't communicate well, this will be a survey fatigue as well. I have dealt with that, and I have to change my questions, change my approach to ask people, because just the survey form would not help you over there.
Tanmay,
Yeah,
I
I'd
just
love
want
to
to add.
have Shamil join in. Yes, please, please, please
No,
do.
I actually want to add on both, what Karthik said and what Pooja said. Very, very valid points. Whenever that you're running any kind of a transformation program, it is extremely important that your senior leadership is totally aligned to what you're trying to do. You may have a certain vision, and if you go on a solo trip, at the end of the journey, you may be able to make some kind of headway. But if your senior leadership is not really aligned to what you're trying to do, this whole effort are just going to be piecemeal and not really worth it. I think the first thing is what Karthik was saying. The senior leadership or the executive layer has to be totally attuned to what are we really trying to do here. Now, people get confused with the word culture, and the idea is basically to give a great work experience to all the employees. Period. That's about it. You want the employees to be happy, satisfied, contented, have trust in the organization, have pride in the brand, be there to really improve what's happening in the organization. And for that, you can use any kind of framework. I mean, I am very passionately involved with Great Places to Work, so I typically end up using that framework just to understand at the starting stage as to how off are we, against the median or against the top 100 companies, because that gives you a good benchmark. Once you're able to explain to the general senior leadership team that what are the benefits of reaching a certain stage and how that's going to change our entire business and the entire dynamics, which includes improved productivity, which includes reduced attrition, which includes higher capability. And once they come online, there is still always this bit of hesitation saying, I don't know what he's talking about because I've never heard of this thing ever in my life. But typically, that's when the first survey really comes in. And to what Pooja was saying, when you do that typical first survey to really understand from the employees, hey, what is it that I need to do different, or what is it that I need to improve? The point is that survey has to be taken extremely seriously. The feedback from the survey, firstly, you have to ensure that it is anonymous. So no matter what somebody writes, they may write something saying, I hate my CEO because of XYZ reasons. You can go back and say, hey, why did you write that? Okay. It's always better to use something which is anonymous. Once you have that kind of data with you, I think the next key thing is to be able to break down the data, analyze the data, come up with plans. But where organizations falter is they keep these plans with themselves. They don't share it with the wider group or the wider employees. If you go back to your employees and say, guys, 600 of you took the survey. This is the analysis of the survey. This is what we've realized. These are your verbatims. This is what the summary of the verbatims is. And basis this, these are the 80 actions that you're planning to do. Now, there may be some actions which are missing. I'm sending you another survey with the open-end comment. Tell me what is missing here. And when the employees come back to you and tell you, listen, you know what? I think you haven't touched upon the vision thing because we don't know where we're going. We don't understand your revenue targets. Then you build that into your plan. And the idea is to go back time and again to the employees, either fortnightly, monthly, during your all hands, giving them a true and honest status update against each of those actions. And when something like that really happens, that's when organizations start taking transformation seriously. Because now they know that, okay, fine, the entire leadership is speaking the same language. The senior most person is speaking the same language. We see those behaviors in the company where certain behaviors are not tolerated anymore. And that just starts off this wave, which then you can
Yeah.
just, in the next few months and few quarters, really harness that energy of the people and drive change within your organization.
Yeah.
Tanmay, so
Please,
two
yes.
things there, right? One, I think, yeah. So there was a time when I used to like really follow Great Places to Work, right? I personally feel it's become a vanity metric now. A great place to work. It's a great branding exercise. And there was a time when we used to do Great Place to Work survey, and like Shamil said, I think he made a beautiful point where once you get results, we used to do something called blank canvas. Survey has not told you anything. Survey has just given you indicators. You become
Insights.
humble. You go back with a blank canvas and say, you said you don't get enough training here. What did you mean? मैनेजर नहीं ट्रेन कर रहा है, कंपनी में ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम नहीं है, ट्रेनिंग का कल्चर नहीं है. You have to really, devil is in the detail. One, actionables from surveys don't come. They give you actionables to go deep dive, number one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Second, I am done with this whole idea and changed it. Surveys are almost like kingdom कि आप राजा हो, हम राजा हैं, आप क्यों दुखी हो, आप क्यों upset हो, आपको ट्रेनिंग नहीं. We have changed the questions. We said, did you do enough to stay engaged at work today? Did you reach out to 5 new people you did not know before? Did you do enough to learn something new at the job? It's time. These surveys are more retrospective, more evocative, and more transferring back ownership on people than organizations sitting and saying, I am responsible from your birth to death. I am going to make sure everything happens for you. No, we are in this partnership. You are equally responsible to engage, recognize, get recognized. Did you recognize enough people in the organization than just complaining I don't get recognition? So I think it's also time that the language of surveys are more partnership, because that's how it starts when offer negotiation starts. This is my skill, this is your brand, it's a partner deal. Suddenly the person comes in, and from partner becomes, now you take care of my onboarding, now you take care of my welcoming, now you take care of my development. No,
Parent
that
and
partner,
child relation bakes comes in.
absolutely. Why is that? And I think it's important as HR we become more empowering. So for example, one of my questions in interviews is, are you lucky? Are you someone? And I got this girl from a company who said, yes, the country I'm born in is a leverage to start with. Imagine if I was born in Zimbabwe. One of our insights was people who are high on gratitude lead less motivation and engagement. I'm inherently a person who looks at positive things, and hence I don't need artificial injections to feel motivated every day. One of the hiring metrics we do is, do we hire people with high gratitude? नहीं है टाइम रोज बैठ के उसको. कोविड एचआर के लिए भी है, सीईओ के लिए भी है, एग्जीक्यूटिव के लिए भी है. Did employee do enough to make sure his cohort is good? So I think we are now probably going a step ahead and saying कि यार साथ में करते हैं. You have to do enough to help us be better, and we will do enough to make you better. Right? And I think that's the tone more and more companies should start taking, I personally feel.
Yeah, and what I can say is that Tanmay and Karthik, what we were when you do this survey, right, you get the results. And how do you ensure that there's a proper communication? Is that we do something called let the best idea win. And in this let the best idea win, it's not just few people get into a Zoom call and saying this is the idea you have to implement. You first see through who will be a part of this activity altogether. And that's when you're picking up the people who are influencers. You're picking up some of the top talent, some of the new hires, somebody who is in phase of growing. So you have different mindset of people coming into a group. There's a problem statement which has come out of the survey. You do the let the best idea win, where every single person individually think over, come back with what should be the action plan. And when we say the action plan, it's very easy to put a long list of 20 action plans, but it's not, you can't practice all. And that's why we say use a scarcity technique and say that if you have to implement only two things, right, which one will you do? And everybody in the group will come back with their pitch. What are the two ideas they will do? And then there is a voting. And when you vote, you do not vote on the idea for yourself. It's the others who will vote. And that's when we take up that as an action item and communicate. This is the committee which was formed. This is what was proposed. And these are the ideas we are implementing. And getting that done. So there's no employee and employer, they and we, right? We all are on the same boat. It is not that the organization is a third party. I am a high rating, I am the CEO, I am the CHRO, I am high ratings, So that's what we really try to empower people with, rather than, I am your employee and now please give me these things, do this one-on-one, do this project. No, we are partnered together.
I'm really enjoying this. I was just watching all three of you. But I thought I'll add with my learnings.
No, TJ, I just want
Yes,
to
please.
mention one point on
Please go
Karthik
ahead.
said, about the great places to work. See, it all depends how you want to use the survey. You can use it as a vanity metric and say, hey, here's my stamp. I'm certified. Now for the next 3 years, I'm going to relax. Or you take the survey and you say, hey, what is my trust index? Oh, my trust index is 70. I may get a stamp or certified. But what is my next year's goal going to be?
Shamil,
And
my
that's when you do the
problem with
steps
them
in place. Yeah.
No, my problem with them is their surveys have not changed 100 years ago. In a world where everything is changing, you are telling me that nothing is going to change on what you ask. I think my biggest thing is right. Good leaders are right a lot because they change their mind a lot. And they change their mind a lot because they're okay to question everything that they've been asking. So and by the way, as I said, I think what you made is a great point कि उस सर्वे से कर क्या रहे हो, right? But I'll also tell you, Shamil, most times we assume people know what they want, right? Henry Ford said, if I asked people what they want, they would have said faster horses, right? Car would not have been made. So somebody will also have to kind of come up, for example, the incentive programs, right? We have been focusing on how do we bring in deep reptilian change. हर आप अपना क्रेडिट कार्ड का बिल कब पे करते हो? लास्ट डे ऑफ द मंथ, 1 day बिफोर द डेडलाइन. इंसेंटिव प्लान्स आर मेड लाइक दैट. 30 days, monthly incentive, quarterly incentive, or annual incentive. So if you look at data of every sales team, the data of first 15 days versus last 15 days, the last 10 days are the most productive because people work differently when they're reaching a deadline. Now, if the average productivity of the company went up by 5% in the first 15 days, is your biggest opportunity for overall productivity to go up. Now, can I do artificial insertions and say in first 15 days anybody who clocks 2 lakh will get a special incentive? So I think I'm more talking about what got us there won't get us there. Are we questioning HR में last innovation कब आया है? I don't remember, and it's community of us who have to question and say, we are still talking about HR as a seat at the table. HR is now being a part of strategy. Ho gaya. I think in good companies, HR is a part of it. I am sitting in AOP plans from last 5 days. Question is what I said. End goal is, can you predict behaviors of the cohorts? Right. I think that's where I'm spending most of my thinking time. Can you predict? Can you
Got
use
it.
AI to predict those things?
I think we found an interesting balance, right? Because what we've noticed is Great Place to Work at one time used to be a tool to find out the sentiment. And right now it's more of like an external validation or a recognition tool alone. So, one interesting analogy one of the CHROs gave us that you need to have a continuous real time engagement platform for the real feedback, which is like your mock exams throughout the year. And Great Place to Work is your one final board exam for the world to know what you've done. So that's one thing we have seen, but I'm really enjoying this because the other thing we also learned is because of the lack of that partnership element that Karthik you mentioned. Sometimes when people give feedback, they presume that's feedback accepted. I have given feedback, you didn't do anything about it. So in addition to communicating what's being done, we realize it's also important to communicate what will not be done, right? So I think that sort of it's an expectation alignment tool of sorts as well sometimes. So
Oh, definitely.
I really enjoyed this. I thought I'll sort of diffuse this extreme professional like topic and go a little personal with all of you. It's almost like a short break that and maybe you can start with you, Karthik. What is something that you believe in that almost everyone else disagrees with? And this is a question to all three of you. So, something you believe in as an HR professional that everyone else disagrees with.
Okay, I wasn't prepared for the Viva, but this is a
I
tough
know,
one.
Karthik, he never told us he will be asking such questions to us, right?
Yeah,
I thought I'll make it more challenging.
this is what I call surprise test. I
Yeah.
don't have any. What is that one thing that I deeply believe in, but the world mostly disagrees? Um,
Karthik, do you want me to go first?
yeah,
Sure,
please.
sure, please. Yes, yes.
Well, I'm like, we are in this great resignation phase, right? And I'll be very honest, whenever I talk to even some of the HR professional employees who are resigning, they many people come back and say that I am resigning because of the compensation. Market is too hot and I'm going, because they are giving me this much of salary. But when you deep dive and to understand what was the number one reason, it is the engagement and how well the manager has been able to engage the employee. It is never the salary as a first or a primary reason for resignation. So, and when I go say that, I can tell you many people will come back, Pooja, you're from HR, please go ahead and increase the salary. That will stop resignation. I said, I'll get the whole organization at 90th percentile also of the market. Nobody can stand and commit that the attrition would not happen. And attrition does not happen only when there is a proper engagement. Compensation is not the primary factor, which so many people still say. I don't know, Karthik, Shamir, do you think?
Pooja, I definitely agree with you. Partly not, and I'll tell you why partly not.
Mhm.
I feel that the salaries in the current stage have gone crazy. Okay, people have gone out of the park. They're hitting the ball out of the park, right? I mean, I've never heard of 80%, 100%, 120% increases. And thanks to all the, I believe, the product companies who have lots and lots of funding, so they can just go around throwing all the money, and all the conventional companies like us then have to figure out how we manage this entire piece.
Sorry,
But
Shamil.
yeah, that was
Guilty of it.
Are you saying that I've done that to you? That's how it looks like.
well, but I definitely agree with you that culture does have a very strong role to play in it. And here I'm talking about the manager engagement, and it's all coming from experience. I probably have more experience than both of you together. And it's not to kind of say that I know more. I don't. Okay, you guys are HR experts, and I've kind of come from different areas. But in one of my previous profiles, or one of my previous roles, we had a very high culture. Okay, we had a very good culture, great scores, very less attrition, 6% analyzed, 7% analyzed, great numbers for the entire year. And that was one year when the company came back and said they're going to be 0% increases this year. While the market was still giving increases, they said 0% increases. So we went onto the stage and told the employees 0% increases, but have faith and confidence in us. These are the reasons why. But our culture is great and you love working here. And this is what we're doing on training and investment. So have faith. Okay, that year, when with 0% increases, our attrition rate didn't go up. It was still 7% analyzed when the market was sitting at 21%. So to your point, and of course I won't go on with what happened next year, but what I'm saying is if the engagement with the employees is high, if you really know what's happening with the pulse, if you really know as to what is it that employees want and how you can eradicate some of their issues, definitely. Salary is secondary in that situation. But today, I think a lot of people are getting baited with this huge salary. But I've had conversations with people who are willing to stay back just because हमें हमें ना यहाँ पे काम करना अच्छा लगता है, हमें हमारा मैनेजर अच्छा लगता है, इसलिए हम रुकेंगे यहाँ पे. So that kind of text is always there.
Got it. Got it. Karthik, any thoughts? Have you formulated your answer?
I mean, so I think Shamil and Shamil, I kind of agree. I think we've kind of. So by the way, I am polarizing in most of my thoughts. So I think I do feel that culture is super critical, but I'm saying it's also over romanticized, right? It culture compensation is a part of culture. Right? Who said compensation is not a part of the culture? How well companies pay is a big element of our life. And I think I'm more a and person than or person. I think it's culture and compensation and not culture or compensation. And it's maybe time we widen the definition of what we call culture. Also, I think culture has been used very it's a word everyone has their own definition. So when I do interviews and I'll say, and people would mostly throw this question at me, company ka culture kaisa? And I ask them, what do you mean by culture? Most times question is weekend off hai, कितना stretch करना पड़ेगा है ना कि managers. So I think everyone has their own idea of what is the most important element in the culture. In my head, culture is largely three things. It's rituals, its stories, and its structures, right? And these are essentially the three pillars. So I say, if I tell you there is this bald guy with a ponytail, every morning 5 o'clock he gets up, does surya namaskar, most of you will say हाँ हिंदू है. क्यों रिचुअल बता दिया. If I tell you every Sunday someone goes to church, you'll say Christian है. Rituals are a very critical part of who we are, and rituals are in organizations as well. 9:30 everybody has to log into job is a ritual. It defines and dictates a lot about what the company's culture is. Second is symbols. We are a very non-hierarchical organization, but CXOs will get Apple laptops. You are a hierarchical organization. you treat people with benefits differently, different level. You can tell all that you want, you're not. So symbols. What symbols are you throwing? So wo jo diwar mein people put values are nothing but symbols. These symbols constantly remind whether people are. And third are stories, which is the most vague part, where how do people talk about your organization outside? I've never seen Google saying we are the best company on the planet. It's always people going out and saying Google is the best company on the planet. So can you focus on rituals, symbols, and stories? And in all of these, compensation is a very critical part. But it's a demand supply. I think it's the reality of life. We'll have to. I know of founders in D2C who do extra 6 million fundraise for tech composition market fight. So I hear Shamil when he says this is the way it works. Yeah.
That last line hit hard. But I thought I'll share my perspective on the same question as well. And it is an intense one that I believe that a lot of HR professionals, especially the ones who've come from a formal HR education, have sort of boxed themselves into best practices as opposed to first principle thinking. And their expectations from themselves and the products they use is subpar, right? And sometimes we keep telling people that, push us, push the other players to actually raise the bar for the entire community of platforms as well. And the biggest signal I've got for this is people have been constantly switching into an HRMS or out of an HRMS. And HRMS have existed for the last 30s, and I'm like, you still haven't stabilized in the last 30 years. So it clearly signals that we need to raise the bar with our expectations from our vendors, our partners, and ourselves as an HR community. And that's, at least that is something a lot of people disagree with. But I really enjoyed this one. So as we conclude, because we have roughly about I think 10 minutes, is there any message you'd like to send to, say, a few thousand HR folks who this will be distributed to, with regards to the role of personalizing experience and tech in it? And most of the HR professionals would have done the basics post pandemic, but what ahead of us, right? So in 2022, what should these HR people be focusing on? What is the message you want to give to them? All yes. Anyone can go first.
I think for me, it's basically reviewing all your journeys within an organization and really critically looking at what's really working and what's not working. I mean, I am of the firm belief that 5 years down the line, there should not be any need of HR business partners. Why do you need a HR business partner if AI, machine learning, strong processes and everything else will actually dictate what happens within an organization? There should be people in HR available for the flexibility. So when there are things that come out of the box, which obviously any of our systems and solutions can't really predict because there are always going to be surprises, that's when HR should typically really get involved. So I believe a lot of time today goes in day-to-day mundane tasks, which can probably be resolved by a ticket or could be resolved by self-service. But when you have a HR business partner around, the easiest thing is to go to them and um, kind of use their time, which is not probably what the right way. So for me, it's the entire HR evolution is required. I'm still struggling with a strong HRIS solution, which is available out there, which can really manage. And again, it's not about HRIS. I have 4,500 to 5,000 people's data, which needs to be captured somewhere to be able to give me the MIS that I want, to be able to give me the predictive analysis and everything around it. Okay. But I'm still struggling with it because I don't see one single platform there. I mean, to be honest, we started using Infido in January. It's barely been about a month and a half, and I found value in it. And I feel that this is something, or this is a kind of platform which, in my dream of 2 years later or 1 year later, no HR business partner, this is probably going to fix the gap because I find that employees are more happy speaking to a chatbot and opening their heart than speaking to a physical person and telling that person as to what do they really feel because they don't know how that communication is going to be communicated further down the line. So.
Thanks for that shout out, Shamil. We've also struggled with this HRMS problem because our vision is to sort of keep plugging in more and more data points to improve predictions. And 6 months later, the company switches their HRMS, right? So there is this problem with the HRMS layer. And we've seen some players like Darwinbox really killing it. But of course, Pooja, would you like to share a message with the other CHROs out there?
I think the whole focus for us is that, when we started, year 2020 was really good because everybody was working from home. There was high engagement, something new, right? And the year of 2021 is where it really became difficult and because people were not able to connect. Well, I agree with Shamil saying that, eventually an AI will, will fulfill all the requirements you have of a business partner, HR business partner. But to all the other HR people, what I'll say is that all the exercises, your playbook, your KPIs is all related to how you can engage employees in the company. That's what is the key focus, irrespective whether you're a new hire, you're a legacy leader, or you're a legacy, or you have just joined 2 or 3 years back. It is all in all, how exactly are you engaged with the employee? That's where we truly believe that the managers have to be trained because we have become very, very overly practical in the Zoom economy. and there are no emotions left. And that's the reason the great resignation is also happening, right? It's so easy to give an interview right now. It's so easy to work from anywhere. How
Don't
exactly I'm going to connect with the manager? And like, remember where, just, go back 5 years from now, when you have to look out for a job and when you have to have a conversation with your manager saying that you want to resign, it was not that easy because you were just thinking, what should be my one-on-one, what should I say? Now it has completely changed. It's just, oh, I have a Zoom call interview, I got the offer, I send a mail, and I'm resigning. So it's all about getting the emotions back, because this will really hurt big time. Because then when you say it's a will and the skill, right? Your will is getting impacted because you're not able to show emotions there.
Thanks, Pooja. I think Karthik mentioned that, but one of the things no worries. One of the things you pointed out was the switch of decentralization from HR to the manager, right? And I think what I learned today from this panel was also how do you like go one step further and say the ownership is not just from HR to manager, but it is also partially shared by the employee themselves, right? I think that's definitely a takeaway here. And of course, Karthik, would you like to conclude with your message?
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think the first thing is, I think it's time HR people also start become humble and say we don't know. I genuinely don't know what the next 1 year gonna look like, and really be an explorer in this, right? I don't know if hybrid will work. I don't know if, because it's so divided that some people absolutely love working from home. They said, given a choice, I'll never come back. It is the best headspace of my life, right? So I think it's the votes are so divided. Will be, I think, and that's where Tanmay's topic is what I loved: personalization. How do you make it a la carte than a buffet, which we have been kind of trying to do for a while. I think one thing which I really think, two things actually, which I think, one is thinking long term. I think how do we get that long term thinking back in companies, and especially in startups, is a huge challenge, because everything is so much like in a startup, 1 year is a long time, right? If someone has worked more than a year, it's not a shorter stint anymore. So how do you get the long term thinking back is going to be one question. Second is also, how do you not make culture a surgical exercise, but also a very sharp, interesting module led exercise as well, right? Can we break culture, which is that giant problem to solve, as we always say? Is there a faster, smarter, or a nuggetier way to kind of serve it? Right, because Karthik at 20 wanted different things from company of Karthik at 24, and Karthik at 24 wanted very different things at Karthik at 30. So question is, can you, again, will be a part of personalization, but can you create micro cultures rather than monolith cultures by design from HR? It would be an interesting problem to solve, I think.
Thanks for sharing, Karthik. One of the things I learned recently along these microculture concepts was how do you initiate someone post joining? And they coined this word called entry interviews as opposed to exit interviews, where they said, what if you ask someone what matters to them outside of work? Very simple conversation after they join, because their guards are not up. And then you can start establishing what matters to them and keep iterating it, because that keeps changing as people grow in their lives. But with this, I think
We
it's
do stay
12:45.
interviews. We do stay interviews. So we don't do exit. We say what will make you stay with us for next 2 years,
Got
and be
it.
proactive. So we identify hypos and we do stay interviews. But entry interviews is also interesting.
Awesome. So hopefully stay and entry will avoid an exit. But thank you so much for your time, Karthik. Thanks, Pooja. Thanks, Shamil. I do want to give a shout out that this might be one of the first times over the last, say, 18 months where the panel just took off and I was just silently observing all three of you. I have so many mental notes that I want to take and sort of productize as well. But one final message to everyone out there, and I'll repeat this, is please have higher expectations from the HR function and the people serving you, which is the tech partners. Whether it's us or someone else, just raise the bar and push our boundaries, because we're here to serve you. So thank you so much for your time, and I hope everyone has a great Wednesday. Cheers, everybody.
Awesome. Thanks, Anmay. Thanks, Shamil.
Thank you,
Bye,
Pooja,
Pooja.
Tanmay,